watercolor wizards, Hajra here. Today I just wanted to quickly show how something like Inktense may not have the same vibrancy as some of the other colors that I have painted with, and that just depends on brand and stuff, but what I've noticed, Inktense does dry a little bit more powdery and matte and a little bit duller than some of the finer colors that I have. So I've been asked to show different pieces for comparison, so here's a video that I'm doing just for that. I could just compare color wheel swatches, but that's not very helpful because things actually look pretty bright on a color wheel in a teeny swatch, whether it's Inktense or Schminke or Cretacolor or Gansai Tambi or whatever. It's just much more useful to compare finished paintings when you can see a full effect of it rather than just a swatch. I've used Inktense in the past, but some of my paintings have been duller simply because they're more low intensity, because the colors I chose were more low intensity than the colors I have chosen for the Poo piece. So these were sort of Halloween-y, really low intensity colors. I didn't choose a strong primary blue for them. I chose this dull navy blue, and the yellow was dull too. I chose the Sicilian yellow, pretty bright red. Yeah, I think it was the chili red. But two of the colors were bringing the intensity down in these pieces, the duller blue and the duller yellow. So I really wanted to do an update and compare this piece to other watercolor pieces I've done with other brands because I chose brighter colors for this piece. So I chose the bright sun yellow, which is the brightest yellow that's on here. And I chose a really bright red, and it was a nice chili or cherry red that I used. And also when it came to the blue this time, I chose an iris blue, which is a nice bright blue. While it's lovely and beautiful on its own and does look very nice and vibrant, when you compare it to other watercolor brands, I do see a difference. And I've tried to compare this piece to other pieces that have at least similar primaries in them, not something that again has a very different intensity or very different color scheme. So I tried to choose something that was using primary triads. So in this case, this Spider-Man piece is just a lot more vibrant than this Poo piece because you can just see that the inks are a lot more strident. And you may not want this look actually for most pieces. It doesn't look as sort of comfortable to the eye or realistic. So that actually works better. I've always found the Dr. Phil Martens to be a little bit too strident and in need of dulling down, but that is something that you should know is if you want some really bright colors, poster graphic bright colors, then the Dr. Phil Martens Bombay inks are a better choice. They also have a little bit of a reflective sheen to them because they have something of an acrylic binder, so they do react differently. This has a very sort of matte, powdery, almost gouache look on the paper, and it's very lovely for the effects that it can create. It's just a comparison. It is duller and more matte in comparison to this, which is semi-shiny and more vibrant. Compare it now to actual watercolors and not other inks. The very first thing I would compare it to is Schminke, because Schminke is the best brand of watercolor that I have. You can see that the pinks and the little tans are a cleaner mix than I get when I used the Inktense in a similar color scheme. Another piece in Schminke, if you compare the green to the greens here, or if you compare this orangish hue to some of the orange that I have in this blue in comparison to this blue, or the pinks that I've mixed, the colors that I can compare do look more vibrant in the Schminke for sure. And with Cretacolor, I've often used a primary color scheme because I ended up doing a lot of Easter and Valentine's Day streams, and you can really see how much more brighter that is. Keep in mind that there are some places here where I am using the red at full saturation or the yellow or the blue at full saturation, and it just doesn't have the kind of super nice intense effect. So again, Inktense is duller than the Cretacolor. If you wanted to start brighter and then mellow it down, you can always do that, but you can't make colors brighter. So that's the one concern I have for the Inktense, is that it does not seem like you can make it as bright and sing as much as some of these other brands. So now I'm going to compare it to Sennelier, which is a lovely fine French watercolor. And if you look at this lighthouse, which I've shamefully still not finished, you can see that the blue here and the red here and the greens here are all brighter, more luminous, more transparent. And these ornaments are a great example because not only is it a primary clean triad, I'm actually doing stuff that's very similar, like this candy cane versus these peppermint drops, or this striped jug. Compare that to the red and other parts, you see the same thing, that this is just not as bright. Also for the yellow and also for the blue, just all of them much, much brighter. So again, Inktense is duller and more matte than Sennelier watercolor pans. A less expensive brand, Gansai Tambi. This Tarzan piece is just as dull, if not duller, because I was using low intensity colors, and that's what I mean by trying to compare the same intensity. You don't want to use colors that start out duller and more low intensity to compare to a piece that has only high intensity, high key colors. Then if I compare it to cleaner colors that I did in the same Gansai Tambi for certain live streams, watercolors definitely seem to be able to pile on and reflect and transmit light better than the Inktense. Compare the pinks here to this pink here. If I compare this violet to what I see in some of these places where I've done violet, it's just duller. The pink and violet mixes are duller. Compare the yellow, and I can compare the blues. Brighter and cleaner than the Inktense blue. It's waterproof and it looks kind of like wash, so I think it's a great tool for grisailles, but of course you can also use any staining watercolor for your grisaille. You don't have to buy Inktense for that. Actually really happy still with the Inktense blocks that I have, but they always turn out to be a bit duller than anything that is in other brands of sort of transparent, more luminous watercolor. And I do think it's because they're using different pigments, and also to make it permanent, there's something powdery to the finish that makes it look more matte and like wash, looking less luminous than watercolors. These now all have 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 as far as the rating, and Lightfast is apparently at 6 and over, so all of these are sort of rated at as having pretty good light fastness, except for just a few colors like crimson, and all the other ones are like at 7s and 8s with a very few 6s and lower in other places. I did see in somebody else's review where they did a Lightfast test on the Inktenses. According to that Lightfast test that somebody else on YouTube did, the reds and the pinks, they fade a little bit in comparison to all the other colors. And I don't know if these are updated colors or not, because the Lightfast ratings on mine are pretty high. So either way, just keep an eye out for your reds and your pinks, and if you do display it hanging up, not in direct light, just like watercolors, and also behind UV glass. Very reasonable to find nowadays, and is something I would suggest for any gouache or watercolor. Even oil and acrylic paintings shouldn't be hung up in direct UV light. They will also start to fade over time. So really, this is not something that's specific to this. This has pretty good light fast ratings. It's just a caution in general to make sure you don't expose any of your original artwork to direct and a huge amount of UV light. I hope you found this video useful in comparing Inktense to various watercolor brands, and also to watercolor crayons and to Dr. Phil Martin's Bombay inks. And hopefully it'll give you a good idea to compare the intensity of the various brands you might have yourself. As always, thanks for parking your brushes here. Please check out my website links in the description box below. If you're interested in buying any of my original art or prints, please email me or visit my website. And until next time, wishing you epic painting adventures.